I am proud to introduce Julie Wells from Give an Hour. Decades of dedication to community advocacy and nonprofit innovation, Julie's passion for strengthening mental health care access is evident in Give an Hour's tailored programs, which aim to reduce isolation, prevent burnout, and build emotional resilience among those living with or caring for someone with rare illness. So welcome, Julie. We're happy to have you here.
I really don't like a stage, so can I get down on the ground? Will you still be able to see me and hear me? That'd be really good. Okay, first of all, a big round of applause for Jordan. I mean, what a queen. Every conversation I have with Jordan, she is so committed and so connected, and you all are so lucky in your community to have Jordan. So thank you for being my partner in this work. I appreciate you. All right, so yeah, I'm Julie. I work at a mental health organization, but I also have connection to the rare disease experience. This picture on the left is me when I came home from the hospital after having a sudden cardiac death. Those are 2 of my kids, 3 of my sister's kids, and then 15 years later, that little monkey at the front, that's Oakley in the middle there, she got her defibrillator. My sister, who's behind her, also has a defibrillator. We have a condition where basically they say there's nothing you did to cause it, we don't fully understand it. We're going to put a machine in your chest. If you happen to die, it'll revive you. Go and keep living. So you can imagine that was a mental health challenge, continues to be for myself. And so, but now as I continue on my journey, I realized that it was all preparation for this moment, for being in this community, to doing the work that fills me up so much. So I don't have FA, but I do have experiences that mirror that quite a bit. I'm so proud of our organization. I just got to give you a little bit of context. We were actually invited to come into the rare space about 4 years ago. Folks in pharma actually were saying, our patient advocacy organizations are saying the #1 concern that they're hearing is around mental health needs. And we don't know what to do about that. When we go and look for therapists, when we go and look for national mental health organizations for resources, they just don't understand the rare experience, and so the materials or the supports that they're giving feel incomplete or, at worst, sometimes harmful. So we spent the first 2 years just listening and learning from different communities around what were the challenges of the rare journey. Every rare disease has its nuances, but there are some similarities across. And then we have created these responses that show up in trainings and support to both patients, caregivers, and the organizations that ground them. This is too big of a room to do this, but this is a really important question I want you to carry away from you today. How do you decompress? Not what is your form of self-care, how do you decompress? What is the thing that you do? It can be big, small, and probably to be helpful, it's probably got to be really accessible and a really natural thing that you're drawn to. So, for instance, for me, at the end of every day, I walk into my backyard and I build a fire. And I clean up my yard. I like to burn things. I don't like to plant things. I'm a destroyer, not a grower. There's a Scorpio in me, I don't know. But it is so easy. All I have to do is just step away from my computer, put on a different pair of shoes, put my hair in pigtails, and I'm out the door. And that's what I just bumble around the yard until it's time to cook dinner. So the small things for me going and saying like, oh, I'm going to decompress by paying for a yoga class and driving across town and putting on a special outfit and paying money to do something like that's never, ever, ever going to work for me. I need something that is going to be very, very tangible. So I challenge you to think for yourself and in conversations with the people that you love about what are the ways that you can decompress. It doesn't have to come just because you have a particularly horrible day. It's not like decompression after your hospital visit or decompression after a new diagnosis. It's decompression every single day. What are the things that you do that just reset your mind and your body? So I want to make sure that we touch on what is the unique mental health challenges in the rare journey. How do we notice signs of struggle in ourselves and in others? Because we are all living in a community. You'll hear my rant about my loathe of the term self-care, and I've relanguaged that to self-preservation, and how to build a community of competent care, which is what we're already a part of. And when I say care, I don't mean medical care. I mean care of people that love you, surround you, support you. All right, so let's level set first. What's stress and what is trauma? I would say all of us would agree 100% that the rare journey is stressful. Do we agree? Yes, yes, yes. But what sometimes gets ignored is the traumatic moments that show up in the rare journey, because trauma is important to name because it shows up differently. That you carry trauma differently than you do stress. So chronic stress can become trauma if it's not decompressed. That's where we start there. What are the ways that we let some of that stress out of our body? Stress is a part of everyday normal life. It sometimes kicks in the biological responses that we need to keep ourselves safe or to keep ourselves regulated. And it typically can be managed with healthy coping strategies and regulations, such as being burn-in stuff. But rare brings stress, but I'd like to introduce the concept that rare also brings trauma. And if you're unfamiliar with working in mental health and having conversations around trauma, and I even have conversations with mental health professionals who are very careful in what they label trauma. But I want to be very clear that rare disease deeply changes how you experience safety. It deeply changes your locus of control for your life. And it, as we heard yesterday in the conversations about hopefulness for the future, there's the extended diagnosis journey, going for, on average, 7 years, sometimes before you even know what's going on. It can be really challenging. The complex healthcare system. I'm a caregiver as well. My fiance is getting ready to do his third spinal fusion. It's a nightmare to deal with the medical trauma he's experienced and the sometimes incompetency of the people we come up against. We know that there is the ongoing and the anticipatory grief. I love that we brought up the point yesterday in the conversation about post-traumatic growth, and that is always a goal of a traumatic instance, but what do you do when the trauma doesn't stop? There's a new cancer diagnosis, there's a new treatment that you have to evaluate if it's going to make your life better. And then, of course, what we want to really combat is the profound isolation and feeling misunderstood. So for those reasons, we feel very confident naming the rare experience as having traumatic impacts. But what may be trauma for me may not feel like trauma for someone who has my diagnosis or has my same experience. We all carry things differently. So it's important that even though I want you to understand your stress, which everyone experiences, I believe that there is a strong case for trauma. The past experiences that we've had in our lives also inform how we respond to new stressors, right? So if I've had a lot of trauma in my past, I've had unhealthy relationships, I've experienced financial insecurity, I've lived through some form of abuse. My threshold for trauma can be lower than someone who has been fortunate enough to not experience trauma at the same rate that I have. But what I've truly found in my own experience is that trauma comes back as a reaction, not a memory. I've had so much trouble over the years with myself understanding why am I feeling the way I'm feeling right this moment. What is like making my heart race? What is making me feel like I'm gonna throw up? What is making me feel like I'm gonna pass out? Like all the ways that people experience stress, for me, also mirror problems with my heart. So anytime I feel dysregulated at all, I'm like, am I gonna die or am I just stressed? I don't know. I always tell people, like when I come to rare conferences, like one of my favorite moments was I went to a conference in Chicago and our hotel was across the street from the hotel. The hospital was across the street from the hotel, and I called my sister. I was like, guess what? She was like, what? I was like, the hospital's across the street. She was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Like, if you don't have the experience that we have of like always being fearful of your health, like no one else would see the hospital across the street as being like a safety mechanism. But for me, it allowed me to relax so that I could just go on and do my work, knowing that if something wacky did happen with my heart, I could literally walk across the street. That's trauma, for sure. We know, though, that also trauma can live in your body for a really long time. This chronic stress can build up. It can make your body unhealthy. It can help you. It's meant to tell you things are happening, whether you're conscious of them or not, that make you feel uncomfortable. But again, it can be very confusing if you don't recognize it and name what's going on. So for my partner, for instance, we were seeing a new spine surgeon, and he had ordered lumbar and a thoracic MRI, and came in the room and was talking about the lumbar, and my partner said that my pain is higher in my back too. He's like, well, I didn't do an MRI on your upper back. I was like, yeah, you did. He did. He was like, oh, I must have missed that in the file. Let me go back out and look at it really fast. They must have put it somewhere else. Guess what my partner was like? He was like, and we're done. I have no trust whatsoever in this man. Even though he had been highly recommended by someone else who had had surgery with him, that his shutdown response was completely based on the experiences that he had in the past. It wasn't, his response wasn't justified based on this physician's mislook in that moment, right? Like it was amplified. So he was ready just to call off all surgeries because the surgeon had missed part of his file, which I get. So when I first came to Give an Hour, this was one of the tools that I was trained on, and honestly, I was like, are you really going to make me teach people emoji faces? That feels really juvenile, but I can't even tell you how impactful this slide has been, and I have cards up here that have ways to get in touch with Give an Hour on it as well. These are 5 common ways that we tell people to recognize that either you yourself are struggling and may not be able to name it, or you notice these in other people if you're a caregiver or if you're a patient. Caregivers take care of patients, and then patients are also in relationships, reciprocal relationships back with their caregivers too on an emotional level. If you're a patient, you might see this in your caregiver as well. So our personality's changing. So maybe I'm someone that showed up pretty hopeful most places. Maybe I was actively engaged and involved. Maybe I come to meetings regularly, or I'm quick to offer support to someone else, and you notice that I've been more withdrawn. Maybe I'm not speaking out, speaking up as much. Maybe you see less joy in my face, in my actions. That's something that just should be a little bit of a flag to say, hey, what's going on? Is this temporary? Are we just having a moment? Are we just having a week, a month? If the personality change seems to be more chronic, that's a time to self-evaluate or have a conversation with someone else. Feeling agitated. People that typically aren't high-strung show up a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more anxious than they typically are. And usually there's something underneath that. And based on our personality types, we probably tend to go anxiety or anger. Depends on what your temperament is. Easy example of this is I was driving in my car. My 25-year-old daughter is highly anxious, and we're driving, and she's like doing all this road rage stuff. She's like cussing out people on the road, and it was just like we're just going to the grocery store. Like, why are we investing this much energy in other people and other cars that don't even know that we exist? This seems like a waste of a lot of energy. Finally, I was like, Paige, what is going on? And she was like, I don't want to go to the dentist this afternoon. I was like, oh, right. We're not having a road rage moment. We're having an anxiety moment around a dentist, right? But she wasn't able to vocalize that, but because I drew attention to the fact of this seems a little outside, you're an anxious person anyway, and you definitely learned from your dad that road rage stuff, but this seems just out of pocket. Feeling withdrawn. There are people that are quieter who like to live their lives a little bit smaller. That's okay. That's just who they are as people. But again, if someone was more outgoing, more gregarious, they were kind of the person that would start the planning, or you could always count on them to be a part of whatever you asked for, whether that was just a social engagement or showing up for a peer support group, and you see them isolating and withdrawing more. That's a moment to be like, hey girl, you good? Hey, everything okay? I noticed that you haven't come to church for the last couple of weekends. I noticed that you haven't shown up in group a couple of times. That doesn't always mean that something's wrong. It could be that someone's making different choices in their life. That's cool. I know I have become a lot more withdrawn in the last year because I travel so much. So when I get home, I don't want to do anything except just be at home with my sweet little man. I just want to build my fire and be in the backyard. I don't want to go to dinner. I don't want to go have drinks. I just want to nest down with my person. But it was important when my friends saw that. They checked in. They're like, "Girl, you good?" I'm like, "Yeah. This is travel. It's just a lot. I love y'all. I'm here for you if you need me. I know that you're here for me if I need you." But just showing up in all the spaces. But it was important that they reached out and checked in on me, because that could have been a sign that things weren't going well. Maybe I wasn't happy with my man. Maybe I wasn't happy with my job. Who knows? Poor self-care. So this can not just look like, oh, people aren't, taking care of their physical appearance. This also shows up in, I don't know, this is a mixed population, so if you know the phrase, I don't give a blank, you know that phrase? Okay, that's an attitude, right? And sometimes it influences our choices. So this can show up in like, I'm not taking my medicine. I'm gonna drink when I know it's not good for me. I don't care. I'm going to be more promiscuous. I'm not going to call my doctor back. I am going to take more risk in my life because I don't care. That's a good sign that something is shifting, and that's a moment to either recognize that in yourself or someone else. And then the one that we really need to pay attention to is this feeling hopeless. For us at Given Hour, we've really found the connection between hopefulness and suicidal ideation. So we pay very, very close attention when people stop feeling hopeful about their futures. And this is that conversation that came up yesterday. And this is ultra personal, but struggling with my kids with mental health pretty significantly. And my daughter, Paige, who does not have a rare disease, she said the same thing I heard y'all say. She said to me, I don't know what I'm going to do. I never thought I'd live past 19. And she meant that in terms of like, I would probably kill myself by the time I was 19 years old. And so that sense of just like, I never thought that things could get better, or that I could find my way, or that I could figure out what my intention and purpose was. That's a scary place. I can feel really uncomfortable to feel that way, and it's also uncomfortable sometimes to have those conversations with folks that you notice that in, but it's imperative that we do, because that lack of hopefulness is an indication that you're slipping. All right, so what do you do when you are concerned about someone else or the conversation you need to have with yourself? So a couple of different things. If you're really worried about your person, your friend, your child, and their mental health, it's going to be important that you check your assumptions and your biases about how people should act and behave. Allow enough space for people to feel safe enough to say the real stuff to you. Making sure that you aren't trying to solve problems for others. This is the number one mistake I see as I go across the country talking to all kinds of people, is we sometimes don't lean into mental health conversations because we think that we're supposed to have a solution to whatever it is that they say. You don't. If you're worried about someone, you need to know what the resources are to be able to support them. But just helping people feel seen, heard, and validated is incredibly important. And then for ourselves, if we notice these things happening in ourselves, then what I want you to focus on is not feeling the feelings, not feeling the feelings. Feeling the feelings, that's going to happen. That's the way that you are set up to feel. But what you can work on are emotional regulation strategies that allow you to manage those feelings and still have enough energy to respond and create new situations for yourself that can help offset some of the sadness, pain, fear that you're feeling. It doesn't mean suppressing emotions. It means just having capacity and tools to navigate those emotional responses that you're feeling. Got it? So, how do you do that? I bet none of these are going to be really surprising to you. When we are feeling dysregulated, either on a consistent basis or in a moment, we have the capability to emotionally regulate ourselves when we soothe our nervous system. There's all kinds of research about each and every one of these things. This is why going for a walk is so helpful, because it's a rhythmic motion. This is why you're hearing so much about cold plunges. People before that were just taking cold showers. It's a way to re-regulate your body. Intentional touch. I find I do that quite a bit. I used to work with young people who had a lot of bad things going on in their lives, and I would find that to build trust, we do it to shame because we already know each other. I'd come over and have a conversation, and sometimes I would just put my hand on them, right? That is a physical touch, sometimes is an emotional regulation. I know when I'm having a panic attack, I just need someone to hold my hand. I need to feel someone beside me. So explore. What are the things that you could do when you're starting to feel overwhelmed? Even when I'm going into my own doctor's appointments. These are some of the things that I have to do. Particularly the deep breathing. For me, it's really, sometimes people ask me what's wrong because I will just say, like in the middle of a conversation, people are like, are you? I'm like, yeah, I'm just trying to let it out, let it settle, get back present again. All right, here it is. Is self-care selfish? Who thinks it feels a little bit selfish? I find that I I've been irritated by the concept of self-care for so long because I feel like it's wrapped in privilege in the way that it's been presented to us. I know, it's like, go get your nails done, go take a vacation, go soak in a bubble bath, take a day off. Okay, well, what if my neighborhood's unsafe? What if I don't have a bathtub? What if I don't have any money to get my nails done? What if I can't take a day off because a chronically ill child is with me 24/7 and I'm a single parent? That feels, when you think about self-care in those capacities, it's very easy to dismiss them, and it feels like extra. Wouldn't it be nice if? But if you reimagine self-care as self-preservation, is there a different connotation there? For instance, yesterday, got up, decided to go to the airport 2 hours early so I could be settled, so I could get on work meetings, so I wouldn't miss any work meetings before I got on the plane to fly from North Carolina to Minnesota to come here to do work stuff the rest of the day, right, till like 7:30, because I love y'all, but this is work. This is not me sitting by my fire with my man. This is work. I enjoy it, but it's work. So I got on the plane. I was like, okay, I got like 3 hours on the plane to get some more stuff done. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm going to read my book for 2.5 hours. I'm going to sit here and read my book. I'm going to read my book. I'm going to read my book. That was self-preservation, right? There's 1,000 reasons not to do that. I could have just kept pushing forward. I feel so much more relaxed when I get my work done. I could have probably enjoyed things a little bit more if I had done 2 more hours of work. But I knew instinctively, you're going to be gone on weekend, just take that moment. That's what I mean, but it's not a self-care practice. That's just a moment of looking ahead and taking care of myself in a very, very small way. And I wonder if you all struggle with this, as I do sometimes, that self-care sometimes can feel like a checklist instead of a strategy. Do you only practice that when you've hit your rock bottom? Do you only feel like you deserve it if you've gotten everything else done? Like, undiagnosed, but a little bit ADHD. My poor partner just watches me like circle my house all the time. He'll be like, come on, baby, let's walk outside. I'll be like, okay, let me just do the dishes. Let me just open the mail real fast. Let me just write that bill. Okay, hold on, let me just write down the list for tomorrow. Like, it's like I'm trying to earn the right to go sit down for a second. I see y'all. You feel that, right? Like, it's these tricks that we play, and sometimes they have been modeled for us. So I'm a Southern woman, obviously, you can hear my voice. I've been in North Carolina all my life. But I don't think it's just a Southern thing, but we definitely elevate the woman who gave it all, right? She always showed up for other people. She was always cooking for her neighbor. She was always put herself last. She always made sure her kids got what they needed, blah, 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 right? That kind of like, don't care for you, care for everyone else has been elevated to a status level. That is what you're supposed to want to obtain. And we have to really fight against what we've seen in the past sometimes, because I guarantee, it's like when, people talk about, sorry if this, activates anybody's feelings messed up, but like when people are like, oh, divorce rates are so high now, like what happened to the American family? I'm like, oh, there's probably a lot of people unhappy for a really long time who just didn't speak up. That doesn't mean I'm not pro-divorce, but I'm just saying, like, just because we saw behaviors doesn't mean that people were thriving in their lives. And so we have to unlearn that a little bit. I also really, really, really lean on this for myself and with the people around me. So I love to think about self-care, self-preservation practices showing up in all different kinds of domains, because there's one of these domains that you probably naturally tend to move towards. If you're a very spiritual person, that probably is your self-preservation, your self-care. That meditation moment, that time in community, reading spiritual text. That might just be what you've practiced your whole life, and that's what you do, and that is your thing. That is awesome. I want to just include that there's other domains in which you could also be increasing your level of self-care. Spiritual is hard to, although people can go through spiritual crisis, absolutely, especially when hard things continue to happen over and over and over again. But where I see people sometimes get stuck is if they have just one practice that works for them, and then something happens that takes that away. So like I had a girlfriend who was a runner. She broke her ankle. She couldn't run. She fell into a huge depression because that was her coping strategy for her life. I am in the financial domain. When I get stressed, it sounds crazy. When I get stressed, I like to do my bills. I like to feel like I know where all my stuff is. Like I can pay my bills. I've been on my own for a very, very long time, raised my kids by myself. So financial security helps me feel emotionally regulated, right? So, but I told y'all my partner's not working. He's getting ready to have another spinal fusion. So I'm 100% the finances for our family right now. That is really stressful. That is not a place that is now bringing me joy. So I have to make sure that I've developed out other coping strategies, or I'm going to be in a place where I don't have what I need. It's like, you know, when your kids have their like lovey, their stuffed animal, or their blankie, that special. That one thing that made them feel safe, and then you lose it, you're in trouble, because that's the only way they get to sleep, or it's the only way you can get them to do things. So it's nice if you have 2 or 3 loveys that you can pull out, so you can wash one, and you can give them the other one. Again, all types of self-care, setting limits on your time and energy to protect your well-being. I'm a strong proponent that we have a limited amount of energy, and I sometimes try to imagine it like where I'm giving it. So I want to be very, very careful with how much I give to places and spaces that aren't impacting me in the ways I want. Celebrate small wins, remind yourself of your strength and your resilience, and seek and accept the help of others, which we're going to spend the last couple of minutes. Connection to others is imperative. I saw in the research yesterday, I think it was the last presentation around caregiver support, where it said the most helpful thing that people were leading into were relationships with others in the community. Absolutely. These moments of connection are imperative for your mental health, and there's all different kinds of ways why peers matter, particularly in the rare disease community. It addresses the concerns around isolation, the resource sharing, it enhances resilience, provides insights. And then I just want to point out, and I'm going to stop and just tell you for the last 2 minutes about some of our resources that we'll be providing to y'all. To have impactful community relationships, we believe that it comes from connection, empathy, presence, trust, and communication. If you struggle to build close relationships or build community, I would ask you to look at which of these areas do you personally struggle in. So for instance, if it's hard for you to trust new people, like that might be an area that you really need to think through and work on, because it's going to make it very difficult to find the community that you need, which we know is going to be the most supportive thing in your mental health journey. Okay. One thing I want you to know is that we are running some trainings that are open. This is peer support training run by my great friend Rhonda Thorrington. She's also our mama. We have a training that's free and open November 19th, where we're going to do a much deeper dive into some of the things that you heard me talk about today. That QR code is there, but you can also go to our website and learn more. 90 minutes well spent. We have tons of psychoeducational materials. I'm so excited. I'm working with Jordan to really nuance those for the FA community, but we do have things on our website. I brought some things up front if you want to grab anything before you go. Most exciting, which I was alluding to yesterday, is we have a clinical network. So we have 3,500 clinicians who volunteer to give an hour a week for a year to see someone who's in a priority population that Give an Hour serves, which is the rare community. Because of our relationship with the FA community, if you or someone that you love feels like they need mental health support, all you got to do is let Jordan know, right, Jordan? Let Jordan know, and she will start the process of getting you connected. Let me tell you how simple that process is. Jordan's going to text me. She'll be like, hey, I'm sending you Shane. Shane is looking for some support, and I'll be like, cool. Then I'm going to text my friend Ashley. Hey Ashley, I'm going to introduce you to Shane, who I met, and he's looking for some support. She'll be like, cool. Ashley's going to email you, text you, or call you. Say, hey Shane, tell me more. What you looking for? Shane's going to say, I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. I can't get my feet back underneath me. I just feel like I've just been hit over and over again. I've never had mental health, or had mental health in the past and it was crappy, or I don't know. I just feel like I just need to do something because I'm recognizing some signs of struggle with myself. Ashley's going to be like, cool, let's talk that through. If you talk to someone, would you like a man? Would you like to see them in person? Would you like to do that virtually? How often? Are there specific things that you think you might want to talk about? And then Ashley will make that connection happen. But I always say therapy's like dating. You're really lucky if you go on that first date with the therapist and it works out. It rarely happens. And you've probably been through that before, which might have turned you off to therapy altogether. But I just want to tell you that we will continue on that journey. Shane can call me back and be like, I did not like Kevin at all. Cool, let's start again. We will do that with you. So all you gotta do is let Jordan know. And then the other thing that we're so excited we're doing is building up, hopefully, a cadre of mental health professionals that understand the rare experience. So my prediction is in 3 years, we will have 500 new clinicians across the U.S. that feel rare competent. So if you need to talk to me,